Want to sew the perfect A-line skirt but don't have a pattern? No problem. In this tutorial, I will show you how to draft a custom A-line skirt pattern from scratch. No expensive tools needed. Stick around because by the end, you will be ready to cut your fabric and start sewing. Here's what you need. You also need your own body measurements. I have a detailed video on how to take accurate body measurements. I have linked it in the card up here and also in the description below. If you are new here, I'm Helena and I love teaching easy sewing hacks. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more pattern drafting tutorials. I'll start by leaving about 2 inches from the edge of the paper before drawing my waist guideline. This is actually optional, but it helps when you want to add your seam allowances and make adjustments later. This line will be my waist guideline, also the start point for most of the other measurements. Now from the waist guideline, I will measure and mark my waist to hip length measurement, which in this case is 10 inches, so I'll measure and mark 10 inches like so. Now draw the hip guideline like so. On the hip guideline, measure and mark 1/4 of your hip circumference measurement. The hip circumference I am using for this illustration is 32. 32 divided by 4 is 8, so I'll measure and mark 8 inches on the hip guideline like so. From the waist, measure and mark your skirt length measurement or waist to hem measurement, which in this case is 24. So I'll measure down from the waist 24 inches and mark like so. Draw your hem guideline where you've marked like so. So on the hem line, we need to decide how much fullness we want in the skirt. For an A-line skirt, I usually aim for about 8 inches to 16 inches wider than the hip measurement. So in this case, I took the hip measurement divided by 4, then I added 2 inches. Mark this point on the hem line to get the hem measurement. Join the hem guideline to the hip guideline like so. Now let's work on the waist guideline. On the waist guideline, measure and mark 1/4 of your waist circumference measurement. So in this case, the waist you are using is 24 inches. So 24 divided by 4 is 6 inches. So I'll measure and mark 6 inches on the waist guideline like so. From where you just marked on the waist guideline, go up by 1/2 inch and mark like so. Join the 1/2 inch mark to the waist guideline with a curve like so. Join this new waistline to the hip line with a curve like so. Add the necessary seam allowances to the waistline, side seam line, and hem line. I used 1/2 inch for the side seam and then the waistline. Then I used 1 inch for the hem, for hem folding. Your pattern is ready, so you can go ahead and cut it out. Label the pattern with your name and cutting instructions. Now let's go ahead and draft the back part of the pattern. The drafting process for the back part is almost the same as the front. The only difference is we add zip allowance to the back part. So to add the zip allowance to the back part, we measure from the center back the zip allowance you want to add to your skirt. So in this illustration, I added 1 inch zip allowance. So I measure from the center back 1 inch inward and then created the new center back like so. Now draw the new center back line like so. Now from your waist guideline, measure and mark your waist to hip measurement. Then waist to hem measurement. Draw your hem guideline where you marked your waist to hem measurement. Then you draw your hip line where you marked your waist to hip measurement. We need to work on the waistline, so we will measure our waist circumference divided by 4. Then we will go up by half an inch. Then we will join it with a curve like so. Now we will start taking our measurements from the new center back line we've drawn. On the hip guideline, measure and mark 1/4 of your hip circumference measurement. Then on the hem line, measure and mark 1/4 of your hip plus 2 inches. Connect the hem line to the hip line. Connect the waistline to the hip line with a curve like so. Add the necessary seam allowances just like we did for the front. Then our pattern is ready to cut out. If your first draft looks wonky, that's okay. Use cheap fabric to test it, adjust and try again. Sewing is all about practice. Don't forget to label the back part too. You did it! Now you can sew your dream A-line skirt. Tag me on Instagram at Curve and Stitch. I would love to cheer you on. Next week, we will learn how to draft an A-line skirt with Dart. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Happy sewing, friends!